Looking for a dime. James Locke in the house, gonna help you shine.
Okay, welcome to the Poole Locke YouTube channel. I'm James Locke. Today we're going to, as we always do, answer two more questions of the day. So we have this question from Carl. He says that I've heard you mention bond mutual funds. I know about bonds and I know about mutual funds, but can you explain these bond mutual funds? Sure thing, Carl. Bonds have two important guarantees that are usually attractive to a retiree. Number one, they put a guaranteed interest payment for the life of the bond. And second, they guarantee they're going to pay back the full face amount. That's the principle, essentially, when that bond matures, right? There's a maturity date. So again, there's two important guarantees that attract retirees to bonds. The problem is, when you buy a bond fund, neither of those two guarantees exist, right? The interest payments can and do fluctuate, number one. Number two, there's no fixed maturity date at which the bond fund guarantees that is going to pay back all of your principal, which means that bond funds have more risk than a diversified portfolio of individual bonds. Why? Because again, those two guarantees are gone. And by the way, Carl, how you might know this, just as a layperson, if you were to Google the definition of bond mutual fund as defined, through the Securities and Exchange Commission kind of definition, what would pop up is a bond mutual fund, Carl, is the stock of a company that owns bonds. So instead of having a bond, instead of having a contract with an issuer, you actually have a bond mutual fund. You have stock of a company that owns bonds. At least if you own the contract, you're guaranteed by the issuer against loss. Now, that doesn't mean the issuer can't go belly up or default, sure, but they have to default in order to really not pay that fixed rate of interest in the principal. So that's why bond funds exist in 401ks, Carl, because they're there for younger workers who want a little bit of diversification, but they're not an ideal tool for people who are retirees and looking for a fixed interest payment. Now, this is particularly important for retirees who are building an income strategy. When you're living off of your investments, periodically, the predictability really becomes crucial, right? Individual bonds, especially when laddered properly, can provide that predictable income stream that many retirees need for their essential expenses. Now, you can create what we call bond ladder by buying individual bonds with staggered maturity dates, which gives you both reliable income and the opportunity to reinvest at potentially higher rates as bonds mature. Now, this approach often works better for retirees, than bond mutual funds, which are more susceptible to market volatility and interest rate risk. Carl, great question. Hey, if you'd like to have your question answered like Carl did, you can email it to us at poollock@poollock.com. Moving on to our second question. This is from Derek. He says, hey, I'm a financial advisor and I don't integrate bonds into my practice, but I do use high dividend stocks, and we do this through ETFs. So what's your take on this approach? All right, Derek, it's nice to know that other advisors are out there listening. So Derek, what's the difference, you're probably asking? Well, using high dividend strategies, right? Okay, first of all, let me break it down. High dividend stock strategies are one way to get income. And yes, healthy companies over time will increase dividends, not decrease them. But in times of financial turmoil, remember, Derek, that companies do cut dividends. So when you're in a high dividend ETF or just a high dividend stock fund, those dividends can get cut during times of crisis. So that's the first problem, right? That you don't want to rely solely on that. You want to have some bonds and bond-like instruments to have some fixed income. That's why they're called fixed income investments, right? But there's a second problem, and the second problem is, frankly, most managers that manage exchange traded funds or manage stock funds are really closet indexers. Now, I know Derek knows what I mean by that, But for all our other viewers, a closet indexer is a fund manager that tries to basically match or kind of copy the index, like the S&P 500. And you might think, well, why do they do that? Well, they do it because, they don't want to underperform, right? They know that if they outperform, great. They might get a little bit extra money in their fund. They might get a bigger bonus, but they know that if they underperform, that money is going to flow out of the fund, especially if they underperform for maybe 2 years or more. Money is going to flow out of the fund, and frankly, not only will they not get a bonus, but that fund manager might actually lose his or her job. So most people are closet indexers who manage stock mutual funds or ETFs. So Derek, what does that mean, right? Well, that means that you're going to be hard pressed to find that something that has 4 or 5% dividend yield. It's probably less than that. You're probably going to get 2, 2.5, maybe 3. Why? Because they know if they deviate too far from the S&P 500, for example, and Derek, the current yield on the S&P 500 now is 1.3%. Now there's years are going to outperform, yes, but there's also going to be years where they underperform, and that's what where they're more worried about. So Derek, the only way to really successfully invest with high dividend strategies, I believe, is to be willing to go out there and do individual securities and do it on your own, because I've been hard pressed to find an ETF or mutual funds that aren't closet indexers. Let me add one more crucial point for retirees considering this approach. When building a retirement income strategy, it's important to understand that dividend-paying stocks, while valuable, shouldn't be your only source of income. A more robust approach would be to create what we call, a 3-bucket strategy. And this involves having some money in growth investments, dividend-paying stocks, and fixed income securities. This diversification helps protect your income stream during different market conditions and economic cycles. Remember, the goal in retirement isn't just to maximize yield. It's to create reliable, sustainable income that can last throughout your retirement years. Thanks for the awesome questions today. As always, if you'd like to send in your questions, you can do so by emailing them to poollocke@poollocke.com. And if you like what you heard, go ahead, like, and subscribe to our channel. I'm James Locke, your retirement income source. I'll see everyone next time.
Money on my mind, looking for a dime. James Locke in the house, gonna help you shine. Retirement is near, don't you live in fear. Listen up, my friend, let me make it clear.